A man in the audience swore he saw it with his own eyes, the devil, standing right at Paganini's elbow, guiding his arm, directing his bow, and people across Europe believed him. This is the story of how the greatest violinist alive became the man accused of playing with the devil. Not as a joke, not as marketing. People genuinely believed this frail, pale man had traded his soul for his talent. You might already know him as the showman who once turned a broken string into a triumph. But that kind of fame came with a price nobody warns you about. So here's the question we're going to answer in this video. How do you prove to an entire continent that you're not the son of Satan? Because that's the corner Paganini gets backed into. And the answer is stranger than the legend. This is Classical Untold. To understand why people believed it, you first have to see him. Paganini did not look so well. He looked, frankly, like a corpse that learned to play the violin. Contemporaries describe it plainly. A livid paleness, a dark and penetrating eye, and a strange, sardonic smile that flickered across his lips. In plain terms, chalk-white skin, eyes that seemed to look straight through you, and a cold half-smile. And this wasn't a costume, it was an illness. Paganini was sick for most of his adult life. Chronic pain, a body that never recovered from a brutal childhood and his final years, a throat disease that destroyed his voice and reduced him to a shadow. The so-called cures made it even worse. The medicine of the day leaned on brutal treatments, mercury tonics, and harsh purgatives with now cold poison that wore his body down and eventually cost him his teeth. 200 years ago, nobody understood any of that. They just saw a man who looked like he was decaying, playing music no human should be able to play. Now add the audience. In Paganini's day, most ordinary people were deeply superstitious. To them, the supernatural wasn't a scary story, it was an ordinary part of daily life. Cures, demons, pacts with the devil, as real to them as the weather. So when they couldn't explain what they were seeing, they didn't shrug. They reached for the devil, and the violin was already halfway there. Generations before Paganini, another Italian, Giuseppe Tartini, swore he dreamed the devil played him a sonata so perfect he spent years failing to recreate it. So the violin already carried a faint devilish reputation, a quiet rumor that it was the devil's own instrument. Paganini was about to walk on stage and make that old rumor feel true. Because what people were to hear genuinely had no explanation. So what was he actually playing on stage? Here's the part that unsettled people the most. Under his bow, the violin stopped sounding like a violin. It could sob like a weeping woman. It could laugh. It could murmur like a human voice trying to speak. He made a single violin chirp like birds and bray like a whole farmyard of animals. Now, you might be thinking, didn't Vivaldi already paint that nature with the four seasons? He did. But Vivaldi spread those effects across an ensemble, a group of players, the birds in one part, the weather in another. Paganini did it all alone. One man, four strings, in real time, turning a single violin into an entire barnyard. To a modern ear, that's dazzling technique. To a candlelit crowd 200 years ago, it sounded like there was something alive inside the wood. Something that wasn't man holding. And then there was the one piece that became the center of the whole legend. Around 1813 in Milan, Paganini saw a ballet with a scene full of witches. He took its melody and spun it into a set of variations, and he called it Le Streghe, the witches' dance. Sit with that title for a second. A ghostly, pale man pulling sounds out of a violin that nobody had ever heard before, performing a piece named after a witch's Sabbath. He was pouring fuel on a fire that was already smoldering. And here's the part that most people miss. For a long time, Paganini never firmly denied the supernatural rumors. When the papers hinted he was in a league with the devil, he didn't rush to shut it down. Why would he? The mystery sold tickets. Every whisper rumor packed yet another hall. Those whispers were the best marketing money couldn't buy. But a rumor you feed is a fire that you don't control. And then, one night in Vienna, someone finally claimed to see it with their own eyes. Vienna, 1828. Paganini arrives, and the city loses its mind. This wasn't a modest success. Vienna went into a full-blown Paganini mania, and the Emperor of Austria himself named him an imperial chamber virtuoso, an official musician to the court. Hold on to that detail. The state itself is stamping this man as a respectable, welcomed at the highest table in the land. And on one of those nights he plays L'Estreghe, the witch's dance. In the crowd sits a man, pale, melancholy, and a strange bright eye. Afterwards, he tells anyone who listened that he saw nothing surprising in the performance at all. Because, he says, while Paganini played, he distinctly saw the devil standing at his elbow, direct in his arm, guiding his bow. Even Paganini's own biographer couldn't fully resist it. François-Joseph Fétis wrote that people had long assumed Paganini and Satan were, quote, in the most intimate relationship, if not one and the same. When your own biographer is half joking that you might be the devil, the rumor has officially won. And this was the moment the fire turned on him. Because once a crowd decides you're the devil, they stop listening to your music and they start watching for the horns. So how do you kill a rumor like that? At first, it looked like the problem might solve itself because the church seemed to be on his side. In 1827, Pope Leo XII had personally decorated Paganini with the Order of the Golden Spur, a papal knighthood. Sit with that irony. The same continent was calling him Satan's partner, while the Pope himself pinned a holy honor on his chest. But honors didn't touch the fear. City after city, crowds mobbed him, forming avenues in the streets just to get close, reaching out to touch his coat. Picture a famous actor today who can't cross a shopping mall without being swarmed. Except with Paganini, the mood underneath was darker. For a lot of those people, pressing close wasn't only adoration, it was a chance to see up close whether this gaunt, unearthly man was actually flesh and blood, and not something conjured. So he tried reason. He published open letters. He got the Italian ambassador in Vienna to vouch that he'd known him for nearly 20 years as an honorable man. And it helped for a while. But as Paganini himself put it, something of it has always remained. The rumor never fully died. And here's what finally broke him. He was piled with honors wealthy beyond his childhood dreams. And yet, he came to understand something that all that money couldn't fix. Respect can't be bought. You can own every gold medal in Europe, and it means nothing if the people around you believe you're damned. So he reached for the one weapon logic and ambassadors couldn't give him, a proof that he was human. He took a private letter his own mother, Teresa, had written him, dated 21st of July 1828, and he published it for all of Europe to read. And it isn't a defense, it isn't an argument. It's just a mother writing to her son. She wishes him health and happiness. She begs him to steer clear of the vices of the big cities. She tells him to kiss his own little boy, Paganini's young son, Achille, for her. And she signs it. Your affectionate mother, Teresa Paganini. Think about what that means. To fight off the devil, the most famous performer in Europe printed a note from his mom. His whole argument underneath it all, the devil doesn't have a mother who worries he isn't eating enough. As his biographer put it, no reasoning person ever needed this letter to know he wasn't the son of Satan. But the ignorant mass, he added, does not listen to reason. And you can probably guess how well that worked. It didn't. A note from your mother was never going to outshout a rumor that good. The rumor outlived every honor, every open letter, every ambassador who spoke up for him, and outlived Paganini himself. Because when he died in 1840, the people who believed it most turned out to be the ones who decided where a man spans eternity, the church. They refused to bury the devil's violinist in holy ground. And what happened to his body in the years that followed, where it went, how many times it was moved, and the sounds people swore they heard near it in the dark is one of the strangest afterlife stories in all of music. He spent his whole life trying to prove he wasn't damned. In death, they treated him as if he were. And exactly what they did with the body of the greatest violinist who ever lived is where we go next.